Week 2 of college football is here, and we're back for another episode to break down previews and predictions for some of the hottest and biggest games around the nation. I'm Nate here with my co-host Brad Hopkins and guest Rooster. We're back for another week, and Brad, we've got a big game to start out with, but before we get to the game, I want to go over our records real quick as stands after 1 week. You can see at the bottom of the screen at the ticker, Brad, you're 4-2. I'm at 3-3, and Rooster, you're at 4-2. So I've got some catching up to do. Let's get right into it. Week 1 was spectacular. Week 2, we're expecting the same thing this weekend. First on the board, the Colorado Buffs go on the road to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Both teams look pretty good in week 1, Brad. This is a 7:30 kickoff on NBC/Peacock. Nebraska currently favored by 7.5 in this one. Brad, what are your thoughts on these two teams heading into week 2 in this matchup? And who do you have winning this game?
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate. So, it was a great week 1 for both these teams. Nebraska was honestly in a total all-out war with North Dakota State. And I know if you watched our Colorado North Dakota State video, that one was a hotly contested video. My guys took a little bit of heat for that, but hey, that's all right. They went with their gut. But I was impressed with Shedeur Sanders. He made some tough throws under pressure, and obviously Travis Hunter showed out as one of the best players in America. Jimmy Horn Jr. had a great game. I will say the Colorado defense still, where is it? I mean, in my opinion, I thought what really cost North Dakota State was they went super conservative in it instead of attacking Colorado's defense. And I think if they wouldn't have gone to such a conservative game plan, they would have had a chance to win that game. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Colorado, Nebraska. Look, I think this is going to be a fantastic showdown. You're talking about the big name, superstar Colorado Buffaloes going against the upstart Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Nate, me and you are a huge fan of Coach Matt Rhule. I think he's got something special going. And I will say, and I know you guys are going to hit on this, I was impressed with what true freshman 5-star quarterback Dylan Raiola did. He looked comfortable, cool, 19 of 27, 238 yards in his debut, 2 touchdowns. They showed depth on both lines of scrimmage. They showed vast improvement. And look, this one is in Lincoln, Nebraska. That atmosphere, I think, is just going to be great. Nebraska knows this is a big game for them because if they beat Colorado, they have really, I think, just started to show that, hey, this rebuild, we're going to be something fierce. And I'm taking the Cornhuskers in this one. I think that 7.5 is a very, very fair line. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Dylan Raiola continues to show up. I think Nebraska is just a little bit better on the defensive side of the football, and I think that's what makes the difference Saturday night in Lincoln.
Wow, Brad, great pick to start the show. And as you mentioned, we got some shade thrown at us the last week with North Dakota State versus Colorado. Both Rooster and I over here thought that North Dakota State was slightly better than Colorado. And to your point, you have to think that North Dakota State kind of beat themselves in that game. That's why we're over here wearing sunglasses, because we're tired of the shade. But Rooster, I'll turn it over to you. Thoughts on this game and who comes out on top?
Well, like y'all touched on in that North Dakota State game, if North Dakota State just stuck to the pass, I think they would have easily come out on top. It seemed like they were putting themselves in 2nd and long and 3rd and long all game because they wanted to stick with the run. But that just didn't pan out. So focusing on the Colorado-Nebraska game, Nebraska, they have a very strong offensive and defensive line in comparison to what Colorado faced last week, in my opinion. And Dylan Raiola, he absolutely balled out in the opening game. And this is something that I just see him exposing Colorado's defense all night long, because as we all watched, that Colorado defense was more porous than a water bottle when you screw the top off and just flip it upside down. They just let everything right through them on the defensive side of the ball. So no matter how many points Shedeur and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and Will Shepherd can put up, the only thing that is going to be able to beat the Cornhuskers is if the Colorado defense can get some stops. And I just don't see that happening. And while The spread is 7.5. I think that's a very fair line. But I'd have to grab the Nebraska Cornhuskers in this game.
Wow, Rooster, coming out strong. Both guys, both of y'all picking Nebraska. Wow. And to y'all's point, I mean, look, Colorado was favored by, I believe, 11.5 points last week. They weren't able to cover it. Give credit to North Dakota State, great team in the FCS. And I believe one of their players in the post-game interview said, quote, we're able to play with the big boys like Kansas State and those guys. I mean, you could very well see North Dakota State in the Big 12 in the near future. I think it would be a great program to add to that conference. And why not? Build depth and build solid football, especially after Texas and Oklahoma leave. I think that'd be a great addition in the Big 12. But that's neither here nor there. Like you said, Brad, we're talking about this week, live boots on the ground in Lincoln, Nebraska. And this game, to me, really comes down to the quarterback play. Shedeur Sanders versus Dylan Raiola. Who can have the least amount of mistakes made? Because it's going to be a hostile environment. Both lines are pretty even. I understand that Nebraska is favored by 7.5 right now. You have to think that has to do with home field advantage and maybe coaching from Matt Rhule compared to Deion Sanders. But when it comes down to it, both teams are going to come out swinging. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game, which we're not used to seeing in a game like this where you have a Nebraska team versus a Colorado team. Usually you're looking at probably an over-under of 35 to 40 points. I wouldn't be surprised if the over-under for this game ends up being 65+ because these two offenses are going to be throwing haymakers at each other. In the end, I'm going to take the Nebraska Cornhuskers as well. I think they just have the slightest advantage when it comes to coaching, when it comes to Dylan Raiola. I think, yes, he is a freshman, but he looked really good this past week. And I know it's UTEP. I get it. I'm going to get some shade thrown at me again. That's fine. I'm here for it. But in the end, give me the Nebraska Cornhuskers and a very close one. That's a wrap for today. When we come back next week, we're going to discuss our Week 3 pick'ems. Be sure to like, subscribe down below, and comment who you believe will win this matchup between Colorado and Nebraska. And also be sure to check out our new partner, squadblitz.com, for all college football fantasy that you're looking forward to. We'll see you next week. It's time to break the huddle.